My boyfriend got engaged to the client's daughter for funding, and I immediately threw in the towel. Key projects? I refused. Important clients? I turned them down. Quarterly report? I handed in a blank one. While they were basking in glory at their engagement party, I walked straight to the CEO at the head table. Robert, I said, I'm going home to inherit the family business. When the company's quarterly results were announced, I stood firmly at number 1 with a 306% achievement rate. But instead of commendation, I was met with the mocking stares of my colleagues. My boyfriend called me into the conference room. Grace, I'd decided to get engaged to Tiffany, the daughter of the miller. I waited impassively for him to finish, then asked, what about me? Daniel looked troubled. Grace, you're the only one I love in my heart, from start to finish. You're my only true love, and my most capable right-hand woman. As for Tiffany, I cut Daniel off, and is 5 feet tall and weighs 250 pounds. Daniel was speechless, his face turning pale. He quickly stammered, Grace, you've misunderstood her. Tiffany, she's actually very kind. I glanced at him coldly. The kindness he spoke of was her texting me late at night from Daniel's cell phone. Sister, Daniel drank too much at a business dinner. I was worried you'd be concerned, so I specifically let you know. His phone died, so I used mine to text you. The accompanying photo showed her hand resting on his forehead. At every company meeting, whenever I spoke, she would softly add a few points, always finishing with, I'm just helping Grace refine it a bit. She might have been too busy and didn't consider everything. Most ridiculously, she even accidentally spilled red wine on the bid proposal I had painstakingly prepared, then, with red-rimmed eyes, bowed to everyone and apologized, blaming her own clumsiness and claiming it wasn't intentional. Daniel wasn't oblivious to these incidents. I questioned him, even after all this, are you still going through with the engagement? Daniel looked a bit awkward, then turned to soothe me. Grace, don't be like this. You're so outstanding and capable, even without me, you could easily find a man 100 times better. Why bother? I cut him off directly. But you are my boyfriend right now. Daniel frowned, his tone laced with impatience. You've never lacked admirers. Aren't there plenty of people in the company, overtly and covertly, trying to get your attention? You don't need me. Yes, I did have many suitors. From scions of prominent families to rising young talents, countless men were far better prospects than Daniel. Yet, I chose him. Only because 3 years ago, my father and I made a bet, I would prove my judgment of character. I bet that Daniel truly loved me, and if he genuinely intended to marry me, I could escape my destiny as a family heir, avoid returning to inherit the family business, and truly be free to do what I wanted. I looked at Daniel again. 3 years ago, who stayed up all night with you revising proposals? Who helped you land your first major client? When your team was on the verge of collapse, who emptied their savings to stand by you? From a rundown office to ringing the bell at the stock exchange, tell me, which step could you have taken without me? Daniel instantly broke out in a sweat, his lips trembling as he said, I'll be good to you. I looked at him coldly, a hint of sarcasm playing on my lips. Good to me? Does that mean following you without a title, or will you keep me as your mistress after you're married? The last shred of patience vanished from Daniel's face, his tone turning completely cold. Grace, don't push your luck. If you keep being so persistent and unreasonable, then get out of this company. Don't even think about promotion, I'll make sure you can't survive in this entire industry. Don't blame me when I turn my back on you. I nodded, withdrew my gaze, and turned to leave. Tiffany was standing outside the door, arms crossed, clearly having waited for some time. A triumphant smile played on her lips as she surveyed me with a look of pity. I know about your past with Daniel, but from now on, Daniel, this company, and everything he has in the future, will belong to me. Grace, some people are born in Rome, others are born to toil. Blame your lack of a good father. Stepping out of the office, I called my toiling father. The call was answered almost instantly. Robert's smiling voice came through. Grace? Perfect timing. The lithium mine project in Africa has been finalized, a $30 billion partnership. I was just about to prepare it as your dowry and put Daniel in charge. That boy, he's truly lucky to have caught my daughter's eye. I chuckled. No need. What's wrong? Just that someone called us toilers, and others think I'm not as good as the client's well-built daughter. No sooner had I hung up than Robert texted me $5 million, along with some encouragement. It's normal for couples to argue. Use this money to buy a designer bag and treat yourself. I'm still abroad finalizing a project, returning next Wednesday. Then, bring Daniel to the house for dinner. When I returned to my cubicle, Tiffany was distributing the desserts she'd brought to our colleagues. Everyone, have a taste. These are specially made by the patisserie we're using for Daniel's and my engagement party. The colleagues gathered around her showered her with compliments. What a perfect couple. Miss, you're so beautiful and generous, you and Mr. Daniel are simply made for each other. Exactly. No matter how much some people try to climb the corporate ladder, they can't compare to you and Mr. Daniel being well-matched in background. An ugly duckling dreaming of becoming a swan? They should know their place. Mrs. Family can casually offer resources that would take some people several lifetimes to achieve. As if DEA. F to the chatter, I sat down and continued with my work. At 3 in the afternoon, Daniel's assistant tapped on my cubicle wall. Grace, Mr. Daniel wants to see you in his office. Without looking up, my fingers tapping on the keyboard, I replied, I'm busy. The assistant left, looking dejected. Less than 10 minutes later, Daniel himself arrived. He stood by my cubicle, his face displeased. Grace, the Eastwood Park project, which you've been managing, is crucial for the company's potential listing on the SciTech board next year. We're at a critical stage now. Prepare for the banquet tonight. I glanced at him and answered clearly, loudly, I am not going. Those 3 words were like dropping water into hot oil. Daniel was completely stunned, seemingly unprepared for me to humiliate him publicly. The surrounding colleagues immediately began whispering, did she take the wrong medicine? She used to work overtime for a month straight for a project, and now she's turning down a key project handed to her? She's crazy. Didn't she used to practically live at the company to impress Mr. Daniel? Oh, I get it. She didn't become Mrs. Shin, so she's deliberately antagonizing Mr. Daniel. Humph, who does she think she is? Does she really think she can threaten Mr. Daniel? Daniel's brows furrowed as he suppressed his anger. This project is vital for the company's IPO next year, and you're the only one who knows all the core data. If you don't go to such an important event, who will? Whoever wants to go can go. His face turned ashen with fury. Grace, search your conscience. Since you joined the company 3 years ago, which important project wasn't an opportunity one gave you? Is this how you repay me? His audacity almost made me laugh. The first multi-million-dollar project, he was passed out drunk at the dinner, and I had to push through, drinking until my stomach bled, to secure it. The time the company's funding fell through, I also pulled countless all-night RS revising proposals, and even swallowed my pride to plead with my father's old subordinate, just to get him the lifeline he needed. Just then, Tiffany gracefully approached in her high heels, intimately linking her arm with Daniel's. Darling, don't get upset over such trivial matters. Mr. Thomas, from Eastwood Park, played golf with my father just last week. I'll give him a call tonight and arrange to meet him. This project will definitely be fine. Daniel instantly beamed, gently patting her hand. You're the sensible one. Unlike some people, an ungrateful wretch that can't be tamed, even after 3 years. With that, he gave me a cold glance, put his arm around Tiffany's waist, and walked away. As they passed my cubicle, Tiffany raised her voice. Some people just don't know their place. A mere employee dreaming of becoming a CEO's wife. When I first met Daniel 3 years ago, he was a poor young man who couldn't even afford a suit. He was promoting his project at a stall in the innovation, and I was drawn in by the sparkle in his eyes. I remember once he scrimped and saved for 3 months just to buy me a necklace I'd admired, while he himself was living on ramen every day. I was with him from the very beginning of his startup, in a basement office. During the hardest times, when he couldn't even pay salaries, we'd share a bowl of ramen. He always said that once the company went public, he would give me the grandest wedding. I rejected all the strategic alliances arranged by my family, convinced that as long as 2 people worked together, any difficulty could be overcome. I never expected that before the company even went public, his heart would have already changed. In his mind, my years of dedication ultimately couldn't compare to the resources Tiffany could bring. That evening, returning home, I found William sitting in the living room. He put down his financial magazine and looked up at me. Are you going to Starlight's gala tomorrow night as well? I was a little surprised. How did you know? Our group is one of the main investors for this gala. William smiled faintly. Want to come with me? I heard they've invited your favorite pianist, Kevin, to perform live tonight. My previously low spirits immediately lifted. Kevin was a pianist I'd admired since my student days. Tickets to his concerts were always impossible to get. And, during the charity auction, there's his latest album with an autograph. I was immediately tempted. So, the next day, I went to the gala with William. As I stepped into the banquet hall, I ran into Daniel and Tiffany at the entrance. Tiffany, holding up her skirt, dramatically scrutinized me. "Oh, look who it is. Weren't you too high and mighty yesterday? Said you weren't coming, but here you are, trailing along after all? Well, I guess so. How many times does a working stiff like you get to see an event like this in a lifetime? Are you hoping to network and maybe get a bigger year-end bonus?" Daniel not only didn't stop her but frowned at me. "Grace, I gave you an opportunity, and you turned it down. What's the meaning of you showing up on your own now?" I found it amusing. "Trailing? What else?" Tiffany immediately interjected. "If you weren't following us, how would you know the gala's address? Crashing the party dressed like that, aren't you ashamed? What I wear, or whether I come or not, is none of your damn business," I retorted coldly. "Grace, you're ungrateful." Tiffany raised her voice. "Get lost." I couldn't be bothered to say another word. Tiffany's face flushed with anger, and Daniel quickly put his arm around her to soothe her. "Don't pay attention to her. She's just jealous of you." Tiffany immediately became smug, leaning against Daniel. "Exactly. Someone without talent or background like her can only mouth off. A man like Daniel is out of your league forever." I watched them clinging to each other and chuckled softly. "You're right, he is out of my league. Aft. Are all, a match made in hell. I wish you both eternal bliss. Just make sure you stay together and don't inflict yourselves on anyone else." Soon after I took my seat at the main table, William returned, his face grim. Just now, some random woman kept hovering around me. She claimed to know Michael, the vice at headquarters, and hinted at a deeper conversation tonight. He frowned and took a sip of water. "I've never even heard that name." I quickly asked William, "What did she look like?" William frowned with an expression of disgust. "Short and plump, wearing a tight red dress, looking like a sausage about to burst. Her face was painted chalk white with powder, and her lipstick practically stretched to her ears." This description clearly pointed to Tiffany. It seemed she'd found out about William's identity and wanted to try her old tricks again, using the same methods she used on Daniel to climb the social ladder. Michael was a minor manager in one of my father's subsidiary companies. Daniel used to brag about how influential this person was to butter him up, which is why I remembered the name. In reality, that man was just an inconspicuous branch manager in my father's company, separated by 5 or 6 levels. His name probably wouldn't even reach my father's ears. Just then, the lights in the banquet hall dimmed, and the host announced that pianist Kevin was about to appear. As soon as he finished performing, I immediately stood up and made my way through the crowd to ask for an autograph. Tiffany and Daniel had, at some point, approached us again. So unsophisticated, like a fangirling school kid. Daniel also chimed in, "Grace, mind your surroundings. Don't make a spectacle of yourself." I got the autograph, then turned and looked at them calmly. "Instead of bothering me here, you might want to spend more time worrying about whether you can actually handle the Eastwood Park project." Tiffany's face instantly changed, but she quickly feigned composure, linking her arm with Daniel's. "Stop being so bitter. Thomas and my father are long-standing family friends. This project is a sure thing for us. Right, Daniel?" Daniel immediately nodded. "Tiffany's family resources are beyond what someone who relies solely on personal effort like you can imagine." With that, the two of them walked away haughtily. The next evening, just before closing, Daniel called a meeting for the entire department. His face flushed with excitement. He announced, "Everyone, don't leave yet. I have amazing news. With full support, we've successfully secured a preliminary letter of intent for the Eastwood Park project. This lays the most crucial cornerstone for our IPO next year. To celebrate, and to thank Tiffany, I'm treating everyone to dinner at the tonight. We'll party all night." The office instantly erupted in a flurry of compliments. "Oh my God. Miss is incredible. She solved the company's biggest problem the moment she arrived. Mr. Daniel is so fortunate. This is a true partner, a powerful alliance. Some people work themselves to death for 3 years, and it's not even as effective as one phone call from Miss. Congratulations, Mr. Daniel. Congratulations, Miss. With Tiffany in the company, it's sure to flourish." Before they could finish, Daniel's assistant burst in. "Mr. Daniel, bad news. We just received word that the Eastwood Park project has been snatched by Hayes. They officially signed half an hour ago." The smile on Daniel's face instantly froze. He whirled around to face the assistant. "What happened? Wasn't it supposed to be foolproof? Didn't Mr. Thomas already give his approval?" The assistant was too scared to even lift his head, reporting softly, They said our qualification review didn't pass. They claimed our company's core team has been unstable recently, posing significant risks." Qualification issues? Daniel almost roared. Didn't I tell you to follow up and ask for time to revise and supplement the documents? The assistant kept his head down, not daring to reply. At that moment, Tiffany immediately jumped up, pointing a finger directly at me, screeching, "It has to be you. Grace, you're behind this, aren't you? Because you're jealous of Daniel and me, you sabotaged us from behind the scenes and ruined this collaboration. You'd even delay the company's IPO for revenge." Watching her frantic outburst, I found it comical. Tiffany, you flatter yourself. I don't need to lift a finger to deal with you. The project failed. Shouldn't you first ask your long-standing family friend, Mr. Thomas? Or maybe your family's influence isn't as strong as you imagine? I paused, then turned my gaze to Daniel, whose face was ashen. Or perhaps, others have already seen through a company that can casually discard its core team and key contributors. It simply has no credibility or future to speak of. Grace, shut up. Daniel was completely enraged. Do you enjoy seeing the company fail so much? You just had to kick us when we're down. Do you have any idea how much this project's failure will affect the IPO? You've disappointed me immensely. This is bad luck. If you hadn't suddenly thrown in the towel, how would the company be facing such a risk of an unstable core team? I nodded calmly. You're right. He clearly hadn't expected that reaction and was momentarily stunned. I looked around at the colleagues who had just been flattering Tiffany, my voice clearly carrying throughout the office. It's indeed due to the change in personnel. After all, I spearheaded all the core projects for the past 3 years. Now, with someone who can't even understand the proposals taking over, investors are naturally concerned about the risk. Daniel was left speechless by my retort, and he yelled, furious and embarrassed, "Grace, don't think you can run wild just because you have seniority. You won't get a single cent of this quarter's bonus or performance pay." With that, he stormed off, leaving an office full of colleagues exchanging bewildered glances. However, just 5 minutes later, to everyone's astonishment, Daniel returned. He walked up to my cubicle, his tone complex. "Grace, someone's here for you." No sooner had Daniel spoken than a young man, impeccably dressed in a custom suit and exuding an exceptional aura, walked directly in. He held a delicate gift box in his hands, followed by an assistant carrying a cake. "Grace, the birthday gift I promised you last month just arrived today." As he spoke, he opened the box, revealing a dazzling diamond necklace. "I also brought you a cake. It looks like work hasn't been going too smoothly for you lately." I was a little surprised. "Alexander, how did you know?" Alexander, the scion of Hayes, raised an eyebrow. "It's all over the circuit. Word is, the boyfriend of the Vance family's daughter got engaged to the, rather well-built daughter of the Zhang family for funding. The circles I moved in were beyond Daniel's reach, so he didn't know I was a Vance family heiress. I even ran into them at a restaurant a couple of days ago, all lovey-dovey. How could Daniel stomach it? Is he blind, ignoring such a beautiful girlfriend like you?" His exaggerated expression made me laugh. "Are you a paparazzo? How do you know everything?" So, Alexander leaned against my desk. "My family's new resort is having its soft opening in a few days. Care to join me and have some fun?" I barely hesitated. "Sure." Now it was Alexander's turn to be surprised. "Huh? Our workaholic actually agreed? Usually, when I asked you out, 9 times out of 10, you were working overtime." I glanced at Daniel and Tiffany, whose faces were ashen not far away, and smiled faintly. I suddenly realized something. Some people truly aren't worth it. Alexander nodded approvingly. "You should have realized that sooner. So many excellent men are lining up for your approval. A guy like Daniel simply isn't good enough for you." Alexander bid me farewell and left after we agreed on a time to meet at the resort. No sooner had he left than Daniel couldn't hold back, stepping forward to question me. "When did you get to know the Hayes scion?" "We grew up together." Tiffany immediately retorted with a shrill sneer. "You're fabricating a story. The Enterprise's scion being childhood friends with a working stiff like you? You probably just used work as an excuse to get close to him, and now you're trying to make yourself look important." Daniel didn't speak, but his eyes, when he looked at me, were full of disapproval. Alexander truly was my childhood friend. Our families were long-standing family friends, and he always loved playing with me when we were little. When we were kids, both sets of parents even joked about a childhood betrothal, but I found it too ridiculous at the time and flat out refused. After that, I subtly distanced myself from him, no longer following him around like I used to. Later, he went abroad to study and looked for me when he returned a few years later. But by then, I was already with Daniel. I knew Daniel had a strong ego and was prone to insecurity, so I met Alexander rarely, fearing Daniel would overthink things. His deliberate visit to the company, making such a grand entrance, was likely because he'd heard about Daniel and me, and came specifically to support me. He was worried I'd be bullied and wanted to show Daniel that I wasn't without support. A moment later, Gary, the department head, quickly walked up to my cubicle, a smile plastered on his face. Grace, the new project liaison work with Hayes. When would be convenient for you to go and have a kickoff meeting with them? I looked up at Gary. I hadn't heard about this project before, and the process wasn't communicated to me in advance. Gary, the balding department head, his eyes darting about, spoke vaguely. Oh, there's been so much going on lately, I completely forgot. It's just a standard kickoff meeting procedure, you're definitely familiar with it. Besides, you're so close with Alexander, coordinating with them will surely be smooth. I crossed my arms and didn't respond, catching a glimpse of Daniel furtively looking our way out of the corner of my eye. I instantly understood, this project had most likely been internally earmarked for Tiffany. Now that she'd botched the Eastwood Park project and they saw I knew Alexander, they were scrambling to shift gears and wanted me to take over. I refused without blinking. I'm not going. Gary glared at me impatiently. Grace, don't throw a tantrum here. I know a little about your situation. With your background, dreaming of getting with Mr. Daniel was always wishful thinking. I advise you to be smart, earn more money and bonuses, and secure your future. Once you've saved enough, going back to a quiet town and marrying an honest man is the proper thing to do. He grew more agitated, pointing at my nose and threatening, you'll take this project whether you like it or not. Keep making trouble, and I'll fire you on the spot. I'll make sure you can't survive in Metropolis. Without waiting for my response, he angrily turned and walked away. Gary's triumphant expression, as if he knew I wouldn't dare defy him, was practically etched on his face. Unfortunately, he had miscalculated. I didn't take his threats seriously at all, leisurely putting on my headphones and playing a game on my phone at my cubicle. About half an hour later, Lily, the receptionist, ran over frantically, her face pale with urgency. Grace, why are you still here? The kickoff meeting is about to start. Mr. Daniel called you, and you didn't answer. He wants you to get to the conference room right away. To avoid implicating Lily, I slowly made my way to the conference room. The moment I stepped in, Daniel grabbed my arm, his tone commanding. Grace, stop stalling. Get on stage and prepare for the kickoff meeting. I shook off his hand and casually looked around. What meetin'? Gee? I don't know anything about it. He paused, then realized I was deliberately playing dumb, and his face instantly darkened. Stop playing games with me. If you keep acting up, you won't get this month's bonus either. Weren't they already all deducted? I retorted with a raised eyebrow. You. Daniel was speechless with anger, pointing at me and threatening, fine. You're fired right now. Get out of this company. All right, I nodded plainly. I'll submit my resignation immediately. Daniel clearly hadn't expected me to be so decisive. Seeing that the Hayes representatives were about to arrive, he instantly panicked. He lowered his voice, asking with the last shred of his patience, Grace, what do you want to cooperate? I looked at him with a half-smile, waiting for him to continue. As if making a great decision, he leaned close to my ear, speaking in a condescending tone. Tiffany and I haven't formally proposed yet. As long as you help me through this difficult situation today, I can consider giving you the position of Mrs. Shin. After saying this, he looked at me with what he presumed was magnanimity, expecting me to be eternally grateful. I scoffed, not bothering to respond, and walked straight to a corner of the conference room to sit down. Seeing this, Daniel became both anxious and angry. He followed me, lowering his voice to threaten, Grace, don't push your luck. If you push me too far, I'll make sure you can't survive in Metropolis. Are you sure you want me to go on stage? Yes. I nodded and leisurely walked onto the stage. Speaking of this project, it reminds me of the Japanese cuisine I had yesterday. The salmon was fresh, but the wasabi lacked punch. By the way, don't you think it's a bit muggy today? I think it might rain tonight. Daniel was stomping his foot in frustration below the stage, frantically trying to catch my eye. I pretended not to see him and continued my rambling. If we're talking about drinks, top-shelf whiskey really hits the spot. But last time I had too much with friends, I had a terrible headache the next day. Do you have any hangover remedies? Daniel was trembling with rage. David, the CEO of Hayes, suddenly started to applaud. Well said. He stood up, smiling. Miss, your words truly resonate with me. Projects should be approached with the same discernment as tasting fine wine, and with the same practicality as eating a meal. Hayes appreciates such sincere and straightforward partners. David not only knew my father but was also well aware of my relationship with Alexander. His applause at that moment was merely a performance, out of respect for the Hayes and Vance families. Seizing the moment while no one was looking, I subtly shook my head at David and gave him a knowing look. David, a seasoned veteran, immediately understood. He changed tack and said to Daniel, however, Mrs. mention of details like the weather and cuisine certainly reminded me of something. This project still requires further deliberation on its specific details. Let's conclude for today and revisit it another time. With that, he and the Hayes team turned and swiftly exited the conference room. Daniel stood frozen, his expression shifting from euphoria to bewilderment, finally settling into incredulous despair. He abruptly turned his head and glared at me, his eyes practically spitting fire. Grace! You troublemaker! You good for nothing! It's all your fault. If you hadn't rambled on like that, the project wouldn't have fallen through. Get out! Get out of this company right now. You're fired! He screamed in a fit of rage, as if that could salvage his last shred of dignity. Watching his hysterical outburst, I found him pitiful. Without a word, I calmly gathered my personal belongings and, under the complex gazes of everyone, left the place where I had poured 3 years of my heart and soul. Later, I heard snippets of news. After I left, several of Daniel's company's core projects stalled due to a lack of suitable replacements, and its performance plummeted. He and Tiffany did indeed get engaged. To save their desirable son-in-law, the Miller did indeed funnel some peripheral business their way, barely maintaining the company's facade. But it was limited to that. The old ambition to push for an IPO was gone. Looking back, the 3 years wasted on him felt like a prolonged investment blunder. Now that I had cut my losses, I refused to waste another moment thinking about him. As long as he didn't provoke me, I couldn't be bothered with his mess. Unexpectedly, the metropolis circles were too small, and I ran into him again not long after at Alexander's and my wedding reception. Oh, look who it is. Grace, how did you sneak in here? Do you actually think you belong at an event like this? Get lost. I didn't even need to turn around to know it was Tiffany. She was wearing a tight dress, her face caked with powder that looked ready to flake off, clinging to a gaunt-faced Daniel, and glaring at me haughtily. I ignored her. Seeing me ignore her, Tiffany's anger flared, and she raised her voice. I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? I'm Mrs. Shen, the legitimate one. Trash like you isn't even fit to carry my shoes. I slowly turned around, surveyed her from head to toe, and chuckled. Mrs. Shen? I heard Daniel's company recently suffered a cash flow crisis, and several projects fell through. I hope your family's finances are deep enough to sustain it. Tiffany's face instantly turned ashen, and she shrieked, a fallen giant is still mightier than a small fry. No matter what, it's still better than you. All you can do is go back to a quiet town and find an honest man to settle for. After she finished, she forcefully tugged at Daniel, who had been silently staring at the ground beside her. Are you deaf? Say something. Daniel then slowly lifted his head, his gaze passing over me and fixing on the massive electronic screen at the front of the banquet hall, where my and Alex Anders' wedding photos were cycling through. His lips trembled, and he murmured, "The bride. Is that you?" Seeing's distraught expression, Tiffany immediately flew into a rage, forcefully pinching his arm. Are you blind? Today is the Vance family heiress's engagement party. You know the Vance family, right? They're a truly top-tier elite family. She lifted her chin smugly, waving the invitation in her hand as if showing off. I pulled so many strings just to get this invitation. As long as I can gain favor with any big shot at the banquet, investment won't be a problem at all. When followed Daniel's vacant gaze and saw my clear, smiling face on the screen, dressed in a custom wedding gown, standing beside Alexander. She pointed at me incredulously, shrieking, "How can it be you?" After breaking up with Daniel, I did go through a period of low spirits. After all, 3 years of a relationship, it would be a lie to say I wasn't sad. During that time, Alexander tried every trick in the book to cheer me up. He took me to eat my favorite Japanese cuisine, watched boring romance movies with me, and even played off-key songs on his guitar outside my house. One time, I accidentally found an old diary in his study, densely filled with my preferences. From my favorite fruits to my preferred movie genres, even small wishes I'd mentioned casually. It was then that I had an epiphany. This guy had liked me since our student days. After getting together with him, I felt completely at ease. I bought whatever I liked, without worrying about hurting his ego. I did whatever I wanted, without fear of being called boastful. Because we were evenly matched, well matched in background. After 6 months of being together, we naturally decided to get married. Both sets of parents were delighted, and the entire business community sent their blessings. Liar. Grace, you're a liar. You faked being poor and working to deceive us. You're clearly a Vance family heiress, pretending to be a regular employee. Alexander rushed over from a distance, naturally putting his arm around my waist, shielding me at his side. His face still held a polite smile, but his eyes had turned cold. Miss, he said, please mind your words. Grace has never hidden anything, she simply chose to prove her worth through her own abilities, not relying on her family background. He turned and gestured to the security guard who was already waiting nearby. Please escort these 2 uninvited guests out, don't disturb the other attendees. It was only then that Daniel seemed to wake up from a dream. His face was deathly pale, his gaze darting between Alexander and me, his lips trembling, but he couldn't utter a single word. When the security guard stepped forward to escort him out, he walked out like a puppet, looking back repeatedly, his eyes filled with shock, regret, and disbelief. Just then, my parents walked over, smiling. Robert patted Alexander's shoulder, while Eleanor lovingly linked her arm through mine. This silent support carried more weight than any words. Seeing my parents and confirming that I was the Vance family's eldest daughter, Tiffany was even more profoundly shocked. She struggled, refusing to leave. You all conspired to deceive us. Is the Vance family so great? Can you just toy with people because you're rich? Grace, you be *tch. I hope you die a horrible death. Enough. Daniel, who had been silent, suddenly spun around and roared at Tiffany, shut up. He'd had enough of her foolishness and incessant chatter, and enough of this humiliating fiasco today. Tiffany was startled by Daniel's sudden roar. She froze for a second, then, like a lit firecracker, completely lost it. She shrieked, lunging at Daniel, how dare you yell at me? Daniel, you heartless jerk. If it weren't for the Miller family feeding you projects, your company would have gone under ages ago. And now you dare to yell at me? She cursed and simultaneously tried to scratch Daniel's face and pull his hair. Daniel, who had also suppressed resentment for a long time, awkwardly fended her off while retorting, if you hadn't constantly flaunted your family's meager resources, would I have given up Grace? What kind of junk projects did your Zhang family even give me? In front of everyone, the two began to tear at each other and fight. Tiffany's gown was ripped, and Daniel's tie was pulled askew. Finally, the hotel security and police, who had rushed to the scene, managed to forcibly separate them and escort them away. My married life was happy and peaceful. Alexander and I were well matched in background and shared similar interests, whether managing the family business or enjoying life, we were perfectly in sync. I no longer had to carefully protect anyone's fragile ego. I could fully embrace my own brilliance. However, this tranquility was shattered one weekend. That day, I went shopping alone. Just as I reached the underground parking garage, a dark figure sprang out from behind a pillar, blocking my path. It was Daniel. He looked utterly destitute, with sunken eyes and a wrinkled suit, a far cry from his former spirited self. Grace! I finally found you. Tiffany and I are divorced. That shrew, I couldn't stand another day with her. I watched him coldly, trying to walk around him to my car. But he grabbed my arm. Grace, listen to me. I know I made a mistake. It was always you I loved. Before, I was blinded by Tiffany's family's meager resources. Can we start over? With the Vance family's current power, plus my abilities, we could definitely. Let go. I struggled to shake him off, a wave of disgust rising in my heart. Daniel, you sicken me. We've been over for a long time. No. It's not over. Daniel's emotions completely spiraled out of control. His eyes were bloodshot, he didn't let go, instead trying to pull me into his embrace. Just give me one more chance. Just one. Just as he tried to use force, a figure rushed over with the speed of wind, followed by a heavy punch that landed squarely on Daniel's face. With a thud, Daniel stumbled back several steps, hitting a car. It was Alexander. He shielded me behind him, his face so dark it looked like it could drip water, his gaze like a knife slicing through Daniel. Dare to touch my wife? You have a death wish. It turned out he had just arrived to pick me up and rushed over immediately when he saw Daniel bothering me. Daniel clutched his face, trying to explain, Alexander, you've misunderstood. I just wanted to say a few words to Grace. Shut up. Alexander didn't give him a chance to speak and immediately called the police. Security also arrived. With surveillance footage as evidence, Daniel was taken away by the police for suspected harassment and attempted assault, ultimately being detained for 7 days. After being released from the detention center, Daniel's situation made his situation even worse. Alexander merely used a few business tactics, leaving Daniel with no foothold in the industry. That evening, back home, Alexander casually mentioned the incident to me, then embraced me and said, "A disloyal and opportunistic gold digger who still tries to force himself on women? He deserves what he got today." Later, I heard that after Daniel and Tiffany divorced, the Miller family's business also plummeted. The two tore each other apart over their debts, becoming the laughingstock of their circle, eventually falling to the lowest rung of society, living in squalor. As for me, in a truly affluent marriage, I stood shoulder to shoulder with Alexander, living a life everyone envied. All those past betrayals and hurts were merely a passing cloud, ultimately leading to my lasting happiness. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more ing stories. See you next time.